Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is...
A geek for fun.
Hey, I'm not Mac.
No, you're not.
The fuck, man? Why can't you go with it?
No, I don't want to lie to the audience. Steve.
We do that every day. Do you think I watch these movies? I just make shit
I mean,
up.
that would explain 90% of your hot takes.
You think I've watched these movies? What is this? I am a Twitter stan, thank you very much. I don't read. I don't watch things. I just complain about it because I've seen a screen cap.
No, it's probably the smartest path, you know?
It definitely saves you a lot of time and gets you a lot of clout, which I guess is optimal.
Yeah, you're just optimizing the algorithm. Anyway, today we're here to do a movie review for something Alfie has chosen. Alfie, what have you chosen for us to review today?
We are reviewing Jennifer's Body.
8 out of 10.
This is going to be like this for a whole episode. I went with this one because I've been meaning to watch this film for a while, because it's been my partner's one of her movies that she's really liked and recommended me for a while. I've wanted an excuse to sit down and watch it, and figured there's been some discourse about this I've seen on Twitter, and people think it's a cult classic. When it came out, it didn't get that many good reception or stuff like that, so it could be something that's a interesting thing to dive into. But prior to this watching, I'd never seen it before, so
Cool. I honestly don't understand the, like, I don't know, what would you call it, the swell of support over this movie. And it's not because I think it's bad. I just can't imagine having, like, any strong feelings about this film.
Oh, thank God.
It's like, I didn't, like, sit there seething in hatred of it the whole time. I didn't sit there, like, thinking, oh God, just let it be over already. This is so bad. And I laughed at a couple of the jokes. I thought most of the acting was okay. The plot has like some moments that like are a little head scratchy, but nothing like terrible beyond conceit for the film. I can't imagine why people would rag on it like obsessively, or why anyone would like particularly care for it, like to any real degree. This feels like one of those movies just kind of like on when you're flipping through channels or something. I watched this on Tubi because it was free, and for the first time in a long while, I watched a movie with commercial break interruptions. And I guess the like most interesting thing I can say about this movie is I got an ad for a compression shirt that has like a copper lining to help support your back and posture, and it worked so well on me that I bought the thing. So good job, movie.
Oh yeah, man.
But no, that's what this feels like to me. It feels like just like one of those movies that's on cable and you're like flipping through channels and like, oh shit, Megan Fox is naked in this, or kinda, sorta, not really. So that'll be enough for me to stay on it and then kind of forget to change the channel for the rest of the duration. That's kind of like, this is gonna be a fun hour because that is the entirety of my thoughts.
I'm kind of there with you. I don't think this is a particularly good movie. It's also not particularly bad. It's okay. It's got its moments. I know what they're going for, and it's a cool idea. It's just not done in a way that's like particularly interesting. And I feel like this movie is a really good example of social media movements around fiction that sort of just completely missed the mark of engaging with it on any substantial level. Like, if you, I was curious about this because I watched it when it first came out years ago because I was a horny teenager, and I didn't remember a thing about it. And I remember a few years ago, people were like really rallying around this as like a lost feminist classic, and it kind of like spiked in popularity around the time we were getting a lot of, not during the Me Too movement, but like we were getting a lot of fiction that sort of resonated with that culture, and people were writing all these think pieces about it and how like everyone was like down on it improperly. So when I watched it again today, I went back and I saw that the Rotten Tomatoes score was really low, but that's meaningless. You shouldn't care what the score says. You should read the fucking reviews, because a review might be scored as rotten but be positive in language. It just depends on the fucking review. Like Batman versus Superman has this all over the place, where lots of positive reviews brought the score down because the reviews weren't sufficiently positive. But anyway, so I went back and read a bunch of the contemporary reviews. This is not a lost feminist classic. Every review I read got the point of the movie, because the point of the movie is really glaringly obvious, and I was very weirded out by the fact that people were like, we somehow completely skipped over this. No one skipped over this. Everyone was like, yeah, it's a clever reworking of horror movies from a feminist perspective that turns it more into like a satirical comedy. It's just not particularly good. Like, everyone got it. It was not hidden at all. So like, there's no reason to have this sort of like re-evaluation of it in our current day, because the evaluation was correct 10 years ago. There are certain lines here and there where I'm like, yeah, this is really funny now, but it's not because it's really funny now because the line didn't land with the old audience. It's because the words literally mean something different now. So like when she has the line when she's like, how can I be insecure? I was the snowflake queen. That's really funny because of what snowflake has come to mean, not because anyone thought it was clever in 2009.
I think that scene in particular was like probably the moment at which I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
Because that's like, you know, not to get like all factual or anything. It's just in any other horror movie, when the people are vulnerable and the monster is there alone with them, then the monster kills it. It usually takes like some outside force, like the cops show up or something like that to get the monster to run away. And I'll like give it that she gets stabbed, but like 15 minutes earlier, she's like, oh no, see, I can heal from cuts. It's fine. So I'm just sitting there trying to figure out, like, why the fuck she leave? Like, she...
They do explain that that's only when she's full.
I guess that's it. It's
when they have this whole thing of, like, the demon is at their weakest when they're hungry.
Yeah, but, like, she's not...
And they don't heal as well when... So, like, I think that's fine.
Fair enough. It just was, like, a weird moment
They do
for
address
me.
it in the film.
Maybe you're right. You're probably right. It felt, like, so weird. Like, that was, like, the one moment where I'm like, what the fuck? This doesn't feel like it belongs here. Like, I like them, like, going back and forth and finally, like, hashing it out with all the shittiness of their friendship and saying, like, no, you've always been a fucking demon. The thing inside you just gave you the power to do shit with it. You've always been awful. Like, I thought that was pretty interesting. I think it pretty heavily contradicts the moment where you're supposed to feel bad for her as she's getting sacrificed earlier in the film, but you know, whatever. The funny note that I did want to bring up of like, I legitimately found this hilarious, and I'm pretty sure the film intended it to be hilarious. So like when they're sacrificing her, they're talking about how like hard it is to get big as an indie band in this day and age, and then they go through with the sacrifice and yada yada. But then, like, we as the audience know that that they basically like botched the sacrifice, like, because she didn't die. The demon came inside of her, but it's like the contract with Satan would have been null and void because it was supposed to be a virgin body and it wasn't. So, like, I just want to say, you know, good job to Low Shoulder. They did it all on their own. They didn't need any help from Satan. They just succeeded on their own. That's the plot of the movie, right? Like, they legitimately got the record contract and a great tour and everything just on their own talent. They didn't need any help from Satan all along.
Well, they got it because of the fire, like, that they took the credit for, of, like, saving people.
Yeah, but that's their own grift. That's not Satan. That's my point.
I mean, what started the fire?
Them. I assume.
You know, Satan could have been behind it, you never know. So that, I don't know, that's one of those things I think it's funny.
I don't know, I found that very amusing. It's like, well, technically this contract with Satan was null and void, so, like, they just did that on their own. They didn't have, like, devil's intervention. They just really, like, were that good a band. Good for them. Good for them.
There's definitely things about this movie to enjoy. Like, I think, again, it's a clever premise, and I think it does some cool stuff when you take into account what the goals of the director were, and you kind of put it in conversation with stuff like he was inspired by, like doing something like Carrie and the Lost Boys and Firestarter, except like really homing in on this isn't a movie that should have been marketed to horny teenage boys. It's a movie that should have been marketed to teenage girls as a power fantasy. But you couldn't sell that in 2009 the way you can sell that now in a time when we're making movies like Promising Young Woman and stuff, or like Hustlers or Ready or Not or Happy Death Day. Like, it was definitely ahead of its time in that way. But even when you put it in conversation with those other movies that do that, those other movies are just so much better, and this one can just be legitimately cringe in places. Megan Fox cannot act. She really can't act. She has moments. There are definitely some like bits of banter between her and Amanda Seyfried where I think the comedy kind of lands, but I think it lands because of just how wooden she comes across. So it's less like it's less like she has comedy timing and more just like the kind of caricature she's playing is so vapid you can't help but kind of laugh.
Yeah, like, Megan Fox, I just think, has never been a good actress. I think she's been basically, you know, like, my familiarity with Megan Fox goes back mostly to when she was in, like, I think the earliest thing I ever saw Megan Fox in was 2.5 Men. She's in 2.5 Men for one episode, and it's like this very creepy, in retrospect, plot about, like, how everyone wants to fuck her, but she's only, like, 17 or whatever. Yeah, it's one of those.
It's not above that show, but I'm not surprised. I still kind of feel.
Yeah, right. So, like, it's a weird premise and stuff, but, like, I think Megan Fox as an actress has just kind of always been like, oh, she's very attractive. Like, that's kind of the main thing she's always had going for her. And it's always just felt like, I don't know, I just think we as a society and like, in our ability to appreciate film have kind of moved beyond the sex symbol actress and to a degree actor, but I don't know, I guess I'm wrong. It's just, my joke with Megan Fox has always been, if you just want to go watch her movies because she's hot, then just don't go watch her movies, let her career fail, and then she'll have to do porn. And then everybody wins. And, like, I mean, I'm mostly joking with that. I don't wish her ill or anything, but I'm just like, I just find the idea that I'm going to go watch someone's movies because, not because they're a good actress, not because I like them, but because they're hot. And I'm just like, really? That's it? It just always has felt like very awkward to me.
And I think this movie uses the kind of expectation that she's hot to kind of mess with you a little bit in places that's kind of interesting. Like, I like that the opening shot of the movie comes from the ending after Amanda Seyfried's already broken out of jail, or before she goes to jail and she kills her, and she's laying on the bed and she's chewing on her hair. But the way the makeup is done and the way the scene is shot, it's not attractive. It's just kind of like buggy and disgusting. And the movie does a pretty good job of, in certain places, making her look less attractive on purpose. And you kind of capture that dissonance between even someone as hot as Megan Fox has this kind of like socially driven insecurity where she doesn't think she looks hot, and the camera does like a good job of like creating situations where she is significantly less attractive than she really is, and then like in the flash of a second she's back to being super attractive again. And I think that stuff is cool, and I think it makes for a cool gimmick, but it doesn't make for like a full-on movie that's worth watching.
And like, okay, so I'm on two sides of the fence about this one, and then this is like the one of the few major points I wanted to make sure I made, and then I need to have Alfie talk about this more because he is just like sitting there silent. But so I'm like at a dissonance on this one, because on one level, making a movie about a succubus and not having sex scenes that actually show sex happening feels actively like wrong and like cowardly. On the other hand, as much as I like will preach of I like it when media about teens allows them to be sexual, but I don't want to see teens sexualized, if that makes sense. Like, I think a good example of this is I like the way that John Green handles teen sexuality in a lot of his work, where, like, he admits that they're doing it, and he writes scenes about it, but he doesn't, like, linger on it, he doesn't go into it, he doesn't become, like, lewd about it. He's just acknowledging the reality that it is something that happens between teenagers. So this scene, like this movie, it feels weird to do a movie about a succubus where you're not actively showing any sex scenes, because that's kind of I feel like a vampire movie where they don't drink blood, or a werewolf movie where they don't transform. You know, it'd be like, I feel like I'm missing the meat in my meat and potatoes. But at the same time, I also don't really want to see high schoolers sexualized in that way, in that like leery way. So I'm at a weird impasse with this film, and it kind of bugs me on that level.
That's such a weird fucking position.
I know. It's a weird place.
But it makes sense. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But what do you mean by no sex scenes?
Well, there's not, like,
because there are multiple.
No.
Sex
There are no
scenes.
there's not actually a sex scene. There is actually no intercourse.
People are implied to have sex, but you never watch anyone have sex.
Yeah, you never. Okay, you watch.
You guys
You have
not
the scene. Okay,
watch
no, hold on.
movies?
All right.
Like, that's-
In all fairness, you have the scene with what's her name and her boyfriend where they have sex. Okay.
Yeah.
Like a virginal sex.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about specifically is the succubus scenes. She never actually has sex with any of them. She just attacks them like when they're vulnerable and about to have sex. That's the part to me that I thought was weird.
Well, I guess you're getting into semantics at that point, because there's not succubuses can, as long as there is. Do you think it's fair to say that it's still sexual attraction as how she lures in her victims?
Yeah, and I guess like that feels.
It's still the act beginning of, and how she talks about it is very. It's not delivered in a way that's sexualized.
Mm-hmm.
It's just. This isn't the first time I've seen a succubus where it's up to the line and then kill, or even less than this. They get to make out and get hard on, and she fucking plays with the dick a little bit. Like, I think that's kind of unfair to say it's without that, when it's pretty intentionally going for it. It's just she doesn't want to give them that release. She wants to take it as soon as like that thing, that power there. I think that dynamic.
Maybe, I don't know. Like, to me, I guess this does like the succubus thing kind of like an anglerfish, where it's like the little bob and it's like luring them in. And I guess that's fine,
Right.
but it just, I don't know. The other thing we talked about with it wasn't a succubus, it was an incubus, was that fucking really shitty movie. With the one shot in Germany, in East Germany, I think it was.
The possession.
Yeah,
one?
that's one. That's
Yeah.
one. Because that was like about an incubus, and you actively get at least a sex scene with that one. And I don't know. Maybe it's just me and my obsession with this like genre or something. I just felt like a little like it's okay, whatever. But at the same time, maybe it was better for that. I'm not even saying this as a complaint against the movie. This is literally just something like, oh, it's kind of weird that like she's not actually fucking any of these guys, even though she's possessed by a succubus. It just kind of made it.
What kind of
thought that
annoyed me
entered
about
my
that
head.
too, though, with the succubus stuff is it's not like really a female power fantasy movie because she just kills a bunch of innocent people that did nothing wrong to her the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I feel like this is probably where I feel like
what did the goth kid do? He
No,
just
this
asked
is-
her out.
Yeah, but this is what I feel like Steve maybe has this and Ian has this, and maybe this is probably fake, but I feel like you guys don't quite understand women a lot. I think it is a female power fantasy just to be able to kill whatever boy you want.
I think that's fair.
Sometimes.
I wouldn't necessarily
Yeah,
disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. There certainly is the idea of like the justification thing, but I think this movie is making a point that the person that goes after the guys that fucking sacrificed her is her friend and not her. She doesn't give two shits about the band. She just wants to do it because she likes it. She likes killing boys. And if you look at like the target audience for this movie and what they like about it, they love the idea of being Megan Fox and killing boys. That is doing
No,
it.
I think I'd agree with that as like the power fantasy thing. In the same way that like some people
Yeah.
just want to be Michael Myers, you know? It's not
Yeah, that's
necessarily
fair. I mean,
healthy.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't
it-
think
it's kind of
there
building
needs to be
into
a
that.
moral justification for her here.
It's definitely calling into that Lost Boys energy of like all of the vampire kids in that movie are assholes, but it's fun that they're assholes, and so I guess you could have that with Megan Fox in here too. I guess my thing is just more in general of like, I get what they're trying to go with Megan Fox's character in terms of like trying to capture the two sides of being a high school girl and the intensity of the relationship she has with her best friend and the insecurity she feels around men. I think all of that stuff is interesting. It's just you sandwich in this thing where she effectively gets assaulted and sacrificed to become a succubus. And then from there is a monster the whole rest of the movie. And I feel like maybe there's a step missing or a dot I'm not connecting between trying to make the movie about that and her just turning into a monster. Like, I don't think you need one if you have the other. Exactly. Like, you could just make a movie where she just kills boys and it's fun. But you also kind of make her a victim and then a monster too? And I don't know if you need both.
Yeah, I can understand that, because when I was watching this the first time, I was like, okay, so like, has she just always been a demon, or was the thing, and then the reveal happens later. What I guess I'll do to just be on the movie's defense a little bit, given the two of you.
I mean, I don't have any strong feelings about it. I'm like,
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine just to keep the episode going. What I mean is, like, I feel like there's something to be said, I guess, about, especially again, this is by female creator, like female director and a female writer. I think there is a little bit of a tendency when guys write, like, say, the rape victim story, to then frame them as they are the victim the whole time, or the opposite of like the monster woman story. I think what you see in a lot of female fiction, and not just in this, but I think there is less of an idea of being defined as this happened to you and now you are the victim. Now this is what your role is in this story, is defined by the actions of this. I think what it's trying to do with the power fantasy is, yeah, this shitty thing could happen to you, but it doesn't need to. You can just do whatever the fuck you want. Still, this is still your complete comparison is completely irrelevant to you. I think it is actually because it's not like the movie forgets about it because we end it with her friend going after for revenge on the guys. I think what it's trying to do is the idea that you don't have to be the sainted virgin that got murdered and then you're being corrupted, and you don't just have to be the bitch that deserved what she got. You can be both, like most women have both things kind of happen to them. Doesn't necessarily mean you're a good person. You can argue about how that's effectively put across and how well that's done, especially because so much of this is for comedy and stuff. But I do think that is intentional from the perspective of not doing one or the other, because those both become very tropey when it is just the one thing, if that makes sense.
I do think, and I don't often feel this way, because I don't think it often has to devolve into this, but I do think one of the problems with this is there were 3 too many dicks in this review.
Oh yeah, probably, for sure.
Yeah, probably.
I like, there's a lot of like intellectualizing, I get it. There's very little I emotionally connect to it. And anything you can say that sort of like validates why a woman would like this movie, I can understand, but I could never like quite feel. And so the movie just doesn't play for me.
So you think it's just a lack of... It's really not a male-centric audience in any way. It's not really for... Yeah, I think that's a fair enough point, and I think that might explain some of the discourse around it. I don't know, like, for me, I think the biggest dissonance is... Again, that conversation in the pool house, which, by the way, brief aside, this movie has some of the absolute best stupid-ass white people in horror movies I've seen in a good long while, because the amount of times I just said, nope, fuck that, I'm going home. You have no, like, when she's in the fucking kitchen, like, nope, I don't give a fuck. Like, my mom picked up that turkey at Boston Market, I'm not supposed to have it. No, I'd fucking leave. I would be out of that situation. It's like, this isn't really your...
The boyfriend is the dumbest sack of bricks I have ever seen.
This isn't really your house, is it? No, of course it's not our fucking house. There's, like... rats and shit, man. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And then the fucking the pool house. No, just all of that. Anyway, sorry. That was not my point. That was just me. Like, that's just
I would say
typical
like,
horror movie shit.
Say that, but at least compared to most horror movie shit, at least it's like, okay, but I'll fuck Megan Fox.
Yeah,
like,
fair,
you know, like,
fair. Like, I'm not saying it wouldn't work on Steve. I'm saying it wouldn't work on me.
Yeah, you know, that's fair.
Who among us would not walk into the rat-infested house?
Me. I would not.
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I am above it. I am just aware of it.
Like, this is all I'm saying, fellas. Is like, let's not. Ian can go be the virgin over in his own little corner, while me and Steve get killed by the succubus. It's fine.
Dude, you don't understand. I missed out on getting a blowjob because I didn't want to help someone cheat on a test in high school. Like, I'm 100% the one that would fuck this up.
This is your... We know you're the virgin of the group, Ian. It's fine. You don't have to...
Yep, you're right, man.
The one with the child. The one with the wife and child.
Yeah.
It's just how it be sometimes, you know?
Anyway, so, like, my wider... Like, dumb white people in horror movie energy aside, I think the biggest scene for me that is the dissonance is the scene in the pool house, where it seems, and maybe I just misread the scene or something, but kind of the point I got out of that is Jennifer becoming possessed by a demon isn't the problem. Jennifer was always bad, and the demon kind of just gave her the chance to, like, fully embrace that and be the ultimate shitty version of herself. And I think that creates a weird dissonance with the scene, you know, like 15, 20 minutes earlier in the film, wherein, like, they put Jennifer, they show the sacrifice scene, they put her in that incredibly vulnerable situation, and, like, filmmaking language-wise, you as an audience member are meant to feel bad for her. Like, if you were to put that scene in its chronological place in the film, what you would see is a character who we've been introduced to, and she's like kind of your like a particularly shitty teenage girl, like not the shittiest in the world, but a particular shitty one. And then in that moment, in her most vulnerable moment, all of that fades away, and she is a scared girl, and you like inherently feel bad for her for that, and you empathize with her, and you feel bad that she is going through this situation, which is admittedly played for comedy, so maybe not the best take, but I don't know. So like the dissonance between those two scenes is I think for me the only thing I will like argue for being like an objectively weird or like this doesn't work. If I were in the writing room on that, not on like a feminist level or anything, but if I were in the writing room on that one, I would just be like, I don't think that scene makes sense for what you are going for with the overarching theme and message and character arcs in your film. That, like, it's human, it's definitely believable, but if your point is Jennifer was always this bad, then I think something is missing here. Something's not lining up and making a lot of sense.
Well, and that's sort of what I mean when I say I think there's a weird disconnect between the power fantasy stuff of it and the survivor of violence part of it, where to a certain degree I get what they're trying to go for in terms of like giving her the full range of experience, but there is also just like shitty 2000s isms baked into the movie that almost undercut it, where like you said they play the violence scene for laughs with all of the dudes just like making quips and stuff. And I will say I don't think this movie ages particularly well. I don't think it ages well, not because of the subject matter, not because of what you can read into it, but I think like the dialogue is just so 2009. It gets really jarring in places, and it's hard to look past. Specifically when like you listen to like Megan Fox's dialogue and she sounds like she came out of a CW show from 2005.
I don't think anyone has ever said kind of Jello. I will argue.
No one says Jello.
I've heard jelly.
So
I've never heard Jello in my entire life.
Again, I'm gonna come to the defense of that. I think that is, as someone who has heard, I think, consumed many American media and heard how your people speak and stuff, that is clearly someone making fun of American and that kind of like high school. Like, I don't think anything in this script at all is meant to be taken as how real people talk in real situations. I think it's, especially everything to do with Jennifer, is a walking parody, and I don't think it's. I don't think it's like people being wooden or like. I think it's entirely intentional in how it's done.
I don't think that's
anything is
though.
accidental.
When you realize it's made in 2009, and every movie in 2009 targeted at this demographic walked and talked and spoke this way. Like,
right, but it's not played in the same thing where like you have a satanic sacrifice so a band can get bigger because they want to be like Maroon 5, man. Like that, you don't write that in your script and not be self-aware of what you're doing, you know?
I mean, I don't know. I think there's a legitimate weakness to like the dialogue in this movie isn't always either believable or aged the best, because I think you can say some of it is legitimately making fun of teenage speak, which, yeah, fine, totally. But other parts of it, if you don't have enough 2009 brain, it just sounds cringe and nonsensical. I think it legitimately loses the joke because the dialogue is so cringe in places.
Now say cringe 3 more times and date this review even further.
Well, I guess the cringe aspect is something where it's obviously going to vary, like person to person, what's going to make you... Because the stuff like that is more likely just to get me to laugh more, because I find a lot of this actually really funny, because that kind of dry humor that I go for a little bit more is what vibe for me, but how that's played across and how you interpret that can cringe is one thing or intentional another. So I think it's fair if it doesn't land for you. It doesn't land for you, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me, and I just feel like the places where I'm supposed to care and feel like there's something sincere happening to kind of offset the satire, I'm not particularly caring. And then the satire itself, I'm not the audience for it. And so I don't really like I know what it's satirizing, I just don't care. And so it's a weird experience because you get to certain scenes, like the one with the goth kid who asks her out, who like has the most awkward asking out situation of all time, which is cringe, but cringe in a believable way for that kind of character, and you could totally see that actor and that look and that dialogue on fucking Smallville. And you get the exchange with her and Amanda Seyfried about like why that's weird on one end and why she should lean into it on the other. And I feel like Megan Fox just does not play that with any sort of range whatsoever. And so it doesn't land. And so like on some level you could see it as like a sincere scene, and on another level you could see it as a comedy. But I feel like everything about it that could be enjoyable is almost in spite of itself. Like, I think the snowflake line, again, is a good sort of microcosm of this, where the snowflake line is funny not because it's funny in 2009 dialogue. It's funny because snowflake means something completely different now, that they could never have known.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, I think you're right about the snowflake line itself being, like, obviously there's different connotations now. I do think in the scene itself, it's a good character beat where she's like, I was the snowflake. It was like 2 years ago. Like, I think that actually
before
is
you started taking diet pills to stay skinny, or no, laxatives to stay skinny. That was pretty good.
I've heard many an argument between two female best friends where it gets to that fucking level of just, like, the deepest, darkest fucking hitters. Like, they know how to destroy each other, man. They know how they've got the fucking ammo to just bring each other down, even though, again, they can have the
It's not that impressive. She's just levitating. That one did legit kill me. Why do you have to undermine me every time?
It's good. So, like, those are the things for me where I thought the script did work. And I had walked into this without much expectations, or I don't normally like horror movie things or dark movie, like, kind of... we normally have to have a decent script or something to engage me with it. So maybe I'm giving it more credit than I do because I was pleasantly surprised with what it ended up being. But I genuinely thought a lot of this stuff was like directed and shot and written in a way which was very smart about its subject matter and understood what to say and when to say it, and also when to just be fucking ridiculously silly but played entirely straight. And I thought that was admirable for something like this, and something I didn't expect to see. So that's for me why it went out well. Like, again, like, just the fucking the random things that, like, the fucking 89 rapist line. Like, I thought just like I did fucking, stuff like that. I think is...
We could go see Rocky Horror Picture Show. I don't like boxing movies.
J.K. Simmons fucking coming in randomly
with a fucking hook hand.
Like, they're ready to donate 3% of that proceeds. It's fucking really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love the idea of the band's called Low Shoulder and all that kind of, like, I think that's a sign of strong comedy but be able to maintain a dark tone and be able to get very gory. And one of the things I actually think hit me, because I don't think, like, the death of, like, the boyfriend or anything was very emotionally compelling or stuff. I think it's fine to give that. I actually do think a scene that actually did work quite well for me was at the goth kid's grave, where the mother is, like, going over, like, the superficialness of, like, pain in high school versus a mother lost her child and buried it. I thought that was actually came out of fucking nowhere, but I thought that was a good thing to throw into something that is about the high school experience and just how things can feel the end of the world. And even if you're undergoing tragedy like that, there are just some pains that you will never understand, especially for something coming from a female's experience. I think it was interesting to have the mother talk about, like, the worst thing that could happen to her is losing her child and the fear and the stuff like that in such a horrific way. Is, again, this movie's not the greatest thing ever written or anything like that, but, like, I think that legitimately I can understand at least why people will look back at this and like, hey, this had some really smart ideas, because I legitimately think it is well written and well directed in a way that a lot of stuff that comes out of this time period just is not close to. And that's not necessarily saying this is the best thing ever. It's just saying how bad a lot of the other stuff is.
I do think it also almost invented a genre of film that we almost take for granted now, where like even like indie art house movies about women on revenge paths owe a lot to this kind of more comedy blockbuster teen movie that did it first and injected a lot of the cinematic language of those movies into it. Like, I don't think you get Promising Young Woman without this. I don't like Promising Young Woman, but I think it definitely owes a lot to it. I think Birds of Prey owes a lot to something like this too, just with the way they characterize and write their female roles, and you see a lot of directors and female writers and stuff now talk reverently about this movie, which is cool. It definitely has the 2020s effect that like Lost Boys did to the early 2000s slasher directors, and I think from that perspective that's kind of all they were going for, because the director talks about taking stuff like Carrie and Lost Boys and the original Fright Night and all of that and giving it to female characters and trying to examining issues from teenage girls' perspectives. And I think she does all of that authentically and well, and I could see women like really gravitating towards this movie and then wanting to make movies like it. I am just not a woman, and I
You'd
get
be a
it.
sexy woman though, Steve.
Doesn't hit me.
Steve, you would be a very sexy
you had
woman.
me you had me fooled with those giant fucking titties, man.
That's true. That's true. Bigger than Zendaya's.
they'd be smacking. You know what's
But
weird?
yeah, no,
with
I mean,
this
I
movie is-
get it. It's just not my kind of movie, and I've seen this movie done better for the same target audience. Like, I love Ready or Not, or sorry, yeah, is it Ready or Not? Yeah, Ready or Not. Ready or Not is great. Happy Death Day is amazing. Happy Death Day to You, the sequel, is amazing. Like, we've done this a lot better since, and so I would just rather watch those movies. Even Malignant is a movie in the same vein as this, and I like it a lot better.
Well, I'm not even going to touch that one. But you know what was weird when I was watching this movie? It was like, I didn't expect J.K. Simmons to turn up. No, I definitely didn't expect to fucking turn up.
Chris
Hey,
Pratt.
Roger Craig Smith's in this movie. Fucking Sonic the Hedgehog's.
Oh, I know,
Sonic
that
the
was
Hedgehog is in
wild.
it?
Yeah, he's on the fucking radio. It's fucking Roger Craig Smith, and he's just doing his Sonic voice when he's fucking announcing like I was in fucking bits, man.
I didn't notice
It's
that.
like,
That's
no
funny.
fucking way! It's Roger Craig Smith, and he's like, "Hey guys, so we've had that crazy fire." It's fucking amazing.
Wow.
The stuff about fire I do really like. Like, if there's any satire in this movie that lands 100%, it is the sort of just like symbolic gesturing, rallying around the school fire thing in the most shallow way possible. And I also love that Chris Pratt, even in 2009, was just a jackass at everything.
I just think it's funny that Chris Pratt in 2009 was like just a couple years before Guardians 1. Chris Pratt in 2009, while he was also on
this is
Parks and Rec,
5 years.
is also playing, oh no, don't worry guys, I'm totally like just out of high school. I'm like 19. That was so funny to me. I'm like, wow.
True.
They never get tired of doing that, where they hire like 28, 30-year-olds to play high schoolers. It's like they fucking... It always fucking kills me. And I think that's kind of, again, where the like over-sexualization of teenagers in high school films comes from, is like they always hire people who are like almost 30. And it's never gonna be okay.
I was talking about this with Aaron in the group chat, but like Euphoria is a big culprit of this, where it's like you can't really talk about the sexual abuses of teenagers when half your show is showing teenagers as things to drool over. And I think this movie definitely like toes a line between that, like you were saying before. It sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess it's probably I would be more comfortable if more things did this, like admitting that the kids have sex, but not like oogling it. Even this movie does that though, but still.
Well, I mean, it's just a matter of skill of the craft, right? Like, you can make characters sexy and have sex without making the camera like a leering thing.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is just we lean into that language of leering a bit too much.
Yeah, it's like that's the only way we know how to shoot sex for a lot of people know how to shoot it, kind of thing.
Exactly, and like the first 50 Shades movie is pretty good about this. Some episodes of Smallville are actually really good about this when they get like the Buffy directors on board. Buffy is really good about this too, where like
Steve likes
there's a way to
something
shoot
from
these
Buffy?
sex.
What?
I know, isn't it wild? The way sex scenes in a lot of those other shows work is typically when you're doing it with teenagers, the perspective is almost more like dreamlike. It's not done in a way where it's like hyper attractive uploaded to Pornhub. It's done in a way where you're clearly in one character's POV thinking about the experience, and that colors the experience itself. So when Buffy and Angel have sex for the first time, it's on her like 17th or 18th birthday, I don't remember. And like the whole thing is like very dreamy. There's a lot of blurs and a lot of effects work where you don't really see much of anything, but you kind of feel the warmth of it all, and that's why the scene works. And then when you go to like some of the better sex scenes in Smallville, it's a very similar thing where you're like either in Clark's perspective head on, where he feels out of his depth, or if he's on red kryptonite, it gets like completely ramped up to 11. The problem with a lot of sex scenes and other things, particularly horror movies, is that the camera loses its attachment to a character, just pulls back and starts shooting a sexy scene, and then goes back to the perspective work later. So it's almost like a Zack Snyder movie where you're supposed to pretend like the action is not part of the story.
What I think is interesting about this, in that sense, though, Steve, is I think there's definitely something, and maybe this also goes to Ian's kind of critique he had about the succubus and what might be like a refute to it, is I think it's definitely interesting, and from the audience for this film as well, it worked really well for them, that the only real like sexy scenes are between Jennifer and Needy in terms of how it's shot. Like, when they're on the bed and like at the close-up kisses, like the scenes where she's trying to seduce the men, like in the forest or anything, very fast shot, very just like, oh, they're making out, and like she's dramatically trying to throw the things out and stuff, and it's not exactly filmed to be like unattractive or anything. It's just more like a static cam, whereas when she's going after Needy, it's like up close of the lips, bite of the neck, a lot of images of the mouth and tongues and all that stuff, which I think is definitely is more so where it's trying to go with the idea of seduction and the idea of actually playing up on people's like desires and the wish fulfillment of that. So I think that's something to be considered about in terms of like the craft of the thing. Is it's not interested in sexualizing heterosexual relationships at all. It's purely interested in just the lesbian side of it.
The Needy makeout scene is interesting because the movie marketed that pretty hard in the trailers. And when they were filming it, they were really aware of that. And apparently both Amanda Seyfried and Megan Fox were super uncomfortable the whole time doing it.
Really?
Which is weird because you hear that a lot with male directors, but not usually with female ones.
Just depends on the actors and the situation a lot, so that's interesting to find out.
Yeah, it is sort of interesting where like it seemed like they were very aware that this is what the movie was going to become about, and so like even if there is some sort of like intent behind subverting that, it still didn't feel particularly great for anyone involved, which is interesting.
I don't know. I guess like my thing isn't that I feel this movie over sexualizes teenagers, because I kind of wish that more things did this where they don't show too much, they cut away a lot and stuff like that. It just felt weird to me to do that for a movie that has a monster that is so sex focused, I guess, is kind of what I was getting at. Is like, it's a weird pitch as a horror movie that like there's a fair amount of blood and guts in this, and I'm pretty sure this still gets an R rating, but like if you were to
Oh yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
if you were to tone down the blood and guts a little bit, I think you could probably end up getting away with this movie being passed as a PG-13. And I just feel like that's a weird thing to do with a succubus film. Again, like, it's just, I guess my thing with that, and maybe I just didn't explain this point well enough, is just, I just feel like that's a weird disconnect to the monster. It'd be like making a Freddy Krueger movie where, like, you don't actually have him kill anybody in a dream. Like if you made a Freddy Krueger movie, and I think this actually happened in one of the Freddy Krueger movies now I think about it, but like if you made a Freddy Krueger movie where like he got out into the real world in like Act 1 and all of his murders happened just in the real world, Michael Myers style, it'd feel like, well, that's not really what I come to a succubus movie for, you know? Like there's supposed to be sex, and it's not that this movie is sexless, it's just that the thing you would think isn't the thing that they do. And I guess that's not inherently wrong, but you know, it just feels weird. You can only subvert expectations so much.
Yeah, and I mean, I would not call this a bad movie. I also feel like historically it's probably an important movie with the trends in horror and stuff. I don't think this is a movie that was like lost to time in any significant way though either. Like I don't think this is one that like we dusted off the shelf and like we threw away for no good reason, because a lot of people are influenced by it, and a lot of the contemporary reviews I think were honestly pretty fair to it. So like I guess I have a hard time watching it and thinking like, well, we didn't like save this movie. We're not like doing it a service by talking about it. It got exactly the reaction it needed, and that's about it. There's no reevaluation happening.
Yeah. I don't know, I guess I just can't imagine having strong feelings on this.
Yeah.
Like everything that I'm saying in this, and this is kind of what happens when you feel like you're at a loss to say something about a film, you often end up sounding like you're just fucking ragging on it. And it's like,
right,
because it's hard to come up with praise for something that like you just thought was okay when it was doing well. And then when you, as you try to think more critically about the thing that you didn't particularly care for, not that you thought it was bad, you just didn't care, then like all that starts to come up is the negatives, is what it did wrong. So I guess since Steve, you and I have been kind of the ones like dogging on it, and Alfie's been the champion of Jennifer's Body, let's flip the script for a sec and talk about some of the stuff. Steve, you and I, let's talk about some of the stuff we liked and we thought was done like genuinely well, and Alfie try to bring up like a thing you thought could have been improved upon, just for shits and grins in that way. I'll go first, and I do want to go ahead and just praise the performance of I forget her fucking name, the girl who plays Needy. I think she's quite good. Yeah, I think she's quite good in this. I think she handles the range of emotions that her character goes through really well, genuinely. The fucking cutaway to her like scrubbing the demonic bile off of her kitchen floor legitimately cracked me up, and she just delivers kind of the absurdity of the situation her character is put into really, really well, and handles just all the weird complex emotions of like trying to kill her 100% lesbian crush, you know? I thought that was really quite well done. I thought her performance was pretty great all the way through.
I really like the soundtrack. We do this a lot in movies now, where we just kind of like load them up with needle drop pop music, and I usually hate it. But I feel like this movie does like a really good job of it, because you're getting a lot of fun pop songs. You're getting a lot of like weird sort of just out of nowhere ones, like when the dudes in the football players in the forest after everyone's died, and it's just this fucking metal song out of nowhere. And then they repeat the that low shoulder song a few times, and I feel like it works well in every effect. And they have a lot of different like scene bands in it. Like Haley Williams sings a song on Panic at the Disco's here, Dashboard Confessional, All Time Low, and all of them are part of the same genre, but they all have like different unique sounds. And I think the movie does a really good job of like creating a mood through all of the music where it's all different vibes, but it perfectly suits the material. And it's never in like the annoying James Gunn kind of way, where James Gunn will like have a scene that has a particular emotion, and instead of just trusting the actors to convey the emotion, the song has to explain it to you in the moment for 2 minutes straight. In this, I feel like the songs are more like punctuation marks or accents to stuff. They hit with their own kind of comedy, they hit with their own kind of emotion, and it enhances what's actually happening in the story, or it complements it or contrasts it in a way that's kind of interesting, and you can kind of pick it apart more intellectually than just like random pop hits, which is impressive because none of these songs are like particularly like it's not like fucking Matt Reeves doing interviews about how much Kurt Cobain influences the Batman. These are all just like radio wonders, and they use them really well despite them not being particularly like standout songs in themselves.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair.
For me, for something I didn't like, is I do think everything with Chip, the boyfriend, and that kind of drama and trying to care about that, is I definitely understand like the priorities aren't there for kind of just the well-meaning but kind of oblivious kind of boyfriend or stuff like that. But I do think there could have been more done to actually make us like care more when he died, and to make that hit more. I do think is a weakness, because overall I'm just like, oh yeah, okay. I think the actress did a great job in portraying it, the grief of it, but I don't think the actual act of it was very tense or compelling. So I think that's fair as a critique.
Just to loop in onto your point and maintain my positive train for a sec, apparently the guy who plays the boyfriend, Chip, originally auditioned for and was cast as the shitty rock star, and then they cast someone else and made him the boyfriend. Thank fucking God they did that, because I would never be able to buy this dude as a rock star that Megan Fox is lusting after. Like, no planet is that possible.
See, like, I'm a little surprised it's that guy and not the guy that's like the goth kid, you know? Like, if you told me it was the goth kid, I would have believed you.
Apparently they wanted like a legit like musician, like they wanted the lead singer for Fall Out Boy or the lead singer for Good Charlotte, but no one was like available, and also why would you do that? So they just cast like a random person who can't sing and dubbed over him.
That's so funny.
Yeah, that was probably the smarter move though, because the boyfriend would have made a terrible rock star crush. I could not see it.
Mm-hmm. He's so salty. You're salty.
Also, just randomly, the salty is funny because there's a lot of fun lines in Buffy season 1 when they're like super cringe 90s that use stuff like that. Like when Cordelia sees Angel for the first time, her immediate reaction is "Hello, salty goodness."
Well, it's weird because like I've heard salty as slang before, but I've never heard it to mean attractive. It's always like, don't be salty.
Hasn't meant that. It hasn't meant that in 20 years, and by the time this movie would have come out, it would have still been dated.
Yeah, like I kind of got that impression with a lot of the slang, as it felt like this might have been like how teenagers were in the 90s, kind of thing. I don't know. That's a pretty minor complaint, though. It's just kind of a weird thing. I'm gonna pretend it's set in an alternate universe where this is just the hip slang that everyone uses. Otherwise, I don't know. I didn't hate the movie. Like, it's kind of been one of those things I've been genuinely curious about in some regard for a while, but I don't know. I definitely don't think I'd ever watch it again. And that's probably for the best, because it's definitely not for me.
Yeah, same. It's not one I have any interest in going back to now that I have seen it twice.
Now that I've gone back to it, I never want to go back to it again.
Well, I haven't seen it since 2009, so I feel like it almost makes up for it. I don't remember a fucking thing about it. I remember it came out in 2009. I was a horny teenager that really wanted to see it, but I couldn't go pay to see it because that would be weird, so it was about one of the first movies I pirated.
Nice. Nice.
Good times. And then I watched it, I'm like, what the fuck? There are no boobs in this.
0 out of 10. No boobs.
Literally 0 out of 10 as teenage me. I'm like, this is not what I thought I was going to be watching. What the hell? I could have just bought a ticket.
Again, if everyone had just like made Megan Fox's career completely fail and she'd just done porn, everyone would have been happier.
Honestly, we should have done that with the Batman too, so Robert Pattinson would do the same thing because he said he would.
Yeah.
And I believe him.
I mean, probably, but here you are watching the Batman like 3 times a day at work. You fucking chump.
That movie is so fucking good, though. I can't stop. Can we review the Batman again?
No.
Let's go.
Let's do it. The fucking Batman.
Yeah, Geeky Gentleman, the Stephen Elfie, the Batman hour.
Oh my
New
god.
segment.
So good. When that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning to them. Fear is a tool.
Are we gonna do like the podcast thing where we're gonna just watch the Batman every day and record an episode, like a commentary on it
I'll do it.
for a year?
I'll do it. Don't threaten me with a good time.
Exactly. Me and Steve are more than ready for this. As
you
Ian
fucking kidding
just
me?
ends
I will
the
be-
year no longer a Batman fan because he's thoroughly fucking sick of this.
I will watch that movie. I will watch the first 10 minutes of that movie on loop for the rest of my life.
I mean, it's.
I'm down with
I
that.
think my favorite thing, which I don't know why I wasn't prepared for this to happen, but I think my favorite thing about the Batman is the fact that like the Snyder fans who claim that like Snyder's the only like cinematography focused director working in superhero movies are having to invent problems with the Batman. That's my favorite. Like, these are the Batman fans that think they understand cinema. The fucking Pattinson bullshit. I'm like, wow, it's just like you can't even give it that it looks pretty. Like the fuck, guys.
If you don't believe the shot where he's walking upside down out of the fire goes hard, then I don't trust you.
You are an AI.
It's not possible. There is no human being alive that doesn't think that shot goes hard, and if they exist, they deserve to be shot. And if they survive, they deserve to be shot again.
This time, more aggressively.
Exactly. This time we won't miss.
Alrighty.
I know that's not very Batman-like, but you know what? It's warranted.
Fair enough. It's funny because I remember I remember like because this is 2009 and so this was in still like the fallout hype from The Dark Knight where everyone was like, sequel, and like I remember Megan Fox was being floated around a lot as Catwoman, and that's something that I thank God every day never happened.
I would not have wanted to see that, but I especially feel like that would have been a bad matchup for Bale.
Yeah. Oh man, that
would have been
weird.
Really bad for Bale.
Yeah. I almost want to like.
After seeing this, I'm definitely in the Poison Ivy camp for her though. I think she could do a good Ivy.
I think she could now. I don't think it would have been the right idea when we were fan casting her for this 10 years ago.
No, not for Bale. But Bale couldn't fucking. The Christian Bale Batman movies I love, but that man is not sexy Batman in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, no,
that is
absolutely not.
absolutely a Batman who is celibate.
No. We have not done sexy Batman in a minute, so that's fair.
Yeah.
Val Kilmer, Pattinson, and I'll buy Clooney. Adam West also had a hard on a lot of the time, so he can throw there in as well.
Yeah, Adam West, Val Kilmer, Clooney, and Pattinson are probably the only ones that have fucked. Actually, I don't know if Pattinson is fucked, but he clearly wants to.
Yeah, he's got the urge for it. He's got the vengeance for
Alfred fucking walks in on him looking at Catwoman, and it's like he got caught watching porn. It was great.
So good.
And then like when she has the sign to see are you still there, and he's like a fucking like scorned little boy that didn't get any. He's like, yeah, I'm here. I can see you.
Anyway. Let's go ahead and go on to ratings for Jennifer's Body. Steve already said 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10 needs more boobs.
Alfie, what do you rate Jennifer's body on the? Do we want to do it on a 10 scale just for shits and grits?
I mean, I could give an actual rating. I was just being funny.
No, you've done it now, Steve. You've done it. It's in the canon.
We're committed to this now. Okay. What you got?
I'll go for, if we got Steve at an 8, I'll go for a 9 out of 10 on Jennifer's body. Jennifer's body be giving me a wetty, that's for sure.
Give me such a wetty. Oh, ew. Just
so
makes it sound
cringe.
so gross.
It
That's
does.
what's good
It's so
about it.
bad.
It's funny.
No, it's cringe. It's like hardcore cringe.
Oh my fucking, y'all two need to get fucking, man, I can't.
Oh, all right. For me, I'll give Jennifer's body like a 9 out of 10. The movie itself, I'll give it like a, I don't know, 2.5 out of 5. If I was giving like an actual movie rating.
Yeah, if we're giving like actual
5 out of 5
rating,
what, Ian? There's a scale.
Yeah, 4.5 out of 5 Jennifer bodies.
There we go.
4.5 out of 5 Megan Fox is a 9 at best. There you go.
There you go.
Like, I mean, just an aside, I'm not going to say Megan Fox is not attractive, but I do not comprehend the, like, massive hard-on that existed for her post-Transformers. Like, she's hot. She's not that hot. Like, come the fuck on.
there is definitely more at work though than how attractive she is going on with Transformers, because I think you do kind of have to put into perspective when those movies came out, when the internet got really big and GIFs became a thing, and how much money those movies made respective to everything else that came out that year. Like, I think it's more of a perfect storm of things as opposed to her being that hot.
I mean, maybe, but counter argument, there was porn on the internet in 2007.
This is true, but I think there's a very different internet landscape.
I don't know. Just that one's always confused the shit out of me. Also, the Transformers movies still suck. Thank you. You
gotta respect her for just coming out and talking about how shitty working with Michael Bay is. Like that definitely gives her a point.
I guess. I don't know. I just don't get like the obsession. Anyway. I think that'll do it for this episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I need to pick something for next week. Technically, I should pick a discussion topic, but I don't want to, and it's my show. So take that, Steve Baxey.
Also, your last pick was a discussion topic, so I feel like it just makes sense for you to pick a review now if you want to.
Yeah, I kind of do. Okay.
With 4 people, this is very hard to keep straight.
Yeah, no, and like, okay, so here's my thing. I might just do the thing where I fucking take over for a couple weeks, because I want to review, like, a lot of a thing, and I don't want to have to watch them all back to back to back in a week. So you guys let me know, would you rather watch these back to back to back and get them all done in 1 week, or spread them out over a couple weeks? Just the ones that are on film. I want to watch and review each of the Doctor Who multi-Doctor stories. Not any time where it's like, because there's like the one where David Tennant has himself and Matt Smith gets one of those too. Not those. When it is 2 different actors that have played the Doctor or more on screen together.
How many of those are there?
3 Doctors, 5 Doctors, 2 Doctors. Time Crash is like 3 minutes, and then Day of the Doctor and whatever the Christmas special one is with Capaldi. So 5, like 6 if you count Time Crash, which is again 3 minutes.
Will require a written list, but I think we can do that in 1 week, can't we?
I mean, they're on the longer side. Like, keep in mind that's like
40 minutes. Yeah, I know for a fact I won't have time for that.
But you definitely would want to be a part of the discussion. So yeah, let's go ahead and spread them out. I think that'll be fine.
What are the first half?
No, we'll do one per, because I think they're dense enough to talk about each on its own.
Oh, okay.
So we'll do one per episode. I'm gonna take over for 6 weeks. Y'all fucking deal with it. Like, everyone duck, because I'm about to turn left and I don't want to hit you with my dick. Yeah, so let's next week we'll start a Doctor Who review escapade,
And a half.
and we'll do the 3 Doctors.
Okay, the 3 Doctors.
Yep, that's got Hartnell, Troughton, and Pertwee. Should be fun.
Interesting.
Yep, should be fun. For Steve, have you watched any of Classic Who? I know you've watched most of Modern.
I've seen some of it.
Okay,
yeah.
so you've got at least a little context going in. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen some of it. I've seen the 3 Doctors, but it's been like 10 years because I haven't gone back to any of that stuff since I first got into Doctor Who in like middle school.
Fair. Just curious. All right, yeah. Next week, 3 Doctors, and we're just going on a Doctor Who kick for a while, so that'll be fun. Because I've been on one, and I don't know, there's something I just want to talk about with all the multi-Doctor stories and just how they function. Now, if I were to expand it to all the multi-Doctor stories, we'd be here for a couple fucking months. Just the ones on film. All right, everyone, thanks so much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I am the champion of the oppressed, which apparently in this case is bisexuals.
And I need something more hardcore than this.
Steve's
Time to watch the Batman again.
Steve needs like a
Do it.
cup of Viagra and like 3 fingers up his ass to get like a softie.
I just need Robert Pattinson talking about fear being a tool over and over again, and that'll get it going. I promise you. I promise you.
Just fucking imagine like this beautiful naked woman on Steve's bed, and he's like, hold on. Let me watch this scene from the Batman on my phone real quick.
Dude, I have legitimately like stopped or denied sex because of a Batman related thing in the past. You have no
Oh
idea.
my fucking god, Steve, I love you so much.
You have no idea.
I love you. That is the most on-brand thing. Steve, I will cut my arm off for pussy, but Batman still ranks higher backseat.
Batman, he'll fucking cut both his arms off for Batman.
I have done so much. I have regretted going to do so many things just because I wanted to do something Batman related, and the Batman thing related wasn't even good. Like fucking Arkham Origins. I remember specifically like breaking a date so I could play Arkham Origins.
That's beautiful. I love you, Steve. Never change.
So bad.
Never change, Steve. You might not like it, but this is what peak human perfection looks like.
Peak human perfection is just being devoted to the Batman.
Exactly.
That's where we're at.
All right.
The Bat.
Until next time, everyone, I'm the Philosopher.
The champion of the deja vu.
Yeah, I know. I realized what I did. It was too late. And we already keep going. We're discussing things.
Like